Zoom is likely going to ask you if you want to continue now that we are recording. Please stay. We'd love to have you continue. So let's get going. Can somebody confirm that you guys can see my PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's do it. So thank you all. In case you don't know where you are, you're attending Eloqua user group meeting. We meet every month, the third Thursday of the month at the same time, same place. It is March 18th. We went backwards in time. This is magic that Sojourn does. I did not update that on the slide. That's my bad. That was when we met last time. So here's me. I'm KP. I'm based out of Tennessee. I'm from New York, hence the no Southern accent. I've been in the marketing world for 16 years, spent 2 years in more of sales support role at Under Armour before that, and have been working with Eloqua and other marketing automation platforms all 16 years. And Eloqua is definitely the one that my expertise lies in, not the others like Marketo, Pardot, Acton, Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics marketing automation platform. Not an expert there, but anyway, I'll be your host for today. Those are my 3 pups. We did a landscape project, hardscape project, actually, rocks and stuff, a weekend ago, and they were watching us from inside their backyard fenced area. So here's what we're going to get through today, a bunch of good stuff. So I'll start with our typical relevant reminders to help you guys stay in the know about a couple of different things that are exciting right now. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Sechrist from the Oracle product management team. He's going to give you guys an update on Infinity IQ, which is something kind of newish, not Infinity, not necessarily Maximizer, but he's going to talk about what this new Oracle IQ thing is, and also tie it back to Eloqua and benefits for you guys with your marketing use cases. Then Kristen's going to give us a quick tip on how to prevent porn spam bots, quote unquote, from submitting to your Eloqua form. So we'll say very clearly what that is. It'll be pretty quick, but she'll walk you through it. And I learned something from that when she shared it with me last week. I'm like, you got to share that with the users. That's cool. It's quick. It's easy. It's out of the box functionality. And if you're getting porn spam bots, you want to do it, or spam bots in general. And then I'll end with just how to retarget Eloqua contacts on your social channels. Not all of them, like Instagram, sorry, your SOL, or an out of the box way to do that. But we'll just cover a couple of different social channels that you can retarget from Eloqua to those, or vice versa, pull in people who are on social channel and market to them in Eloqua auto-magically. So we'll also leave time for tips, questions that you guys might have, and go from there. I think that'll wrap it up for today. So first things first, if you don't know what the Oracle Marketing Awards are, well, this is the 15th year that they will be put on. They were started back in the day by Eloqua, and then when Oracle bought Eloqua, they became Marquee Awards for not just Eloqua customers, but for anybody using an Oracle Marketing Cloud solution. By the way, if you didn't know, Oracle Marketing Cloud is now CX marketing, or customer experience marketing. So if you hear somebody say that at Oracle, same thing. So the Marquee Awards are going to be a virtual event in July. No date established yet. I just double checked this morning. There's still no date, but they will have finalists announced. I think it's in June, and then the award winners in July. And you have to get your submission in by tomorrow. I mentioned this last month, and I think the original submission due date was sometime in March. They extended it. It happens every year. They almost always extend it. So I highly recommend, if you have a great story to share from the last year, it can't be from like 3 years ago, something awesome you did, but from the last year, put yourself in, you know, it can't hurt to try. And the cool thing is, if you're a finalist, I think you get like a plaque or something. And just being a finalist is such an amazing accomplishment with these awards. So to not even, well, to not win it, don't worry about it. If you are a finalist, that is fantastic for your company, for your team, for your career. So anyway, the next thing is we have more good stuff coming in Eloqua, bug fixes, new features, feature improvements, tweaks, whatever you want to call them. With the next Eloqua release, they do it every quarter, if you didn't know. So 21B, they do it the year. So this is 2021, and ABCD. So in May, we'll have, depending on what pod you're on, the new features and fixes coming. And we were going to have a Eloqua product manager present about the new release. They changed their mind, which is totally understandable. They said, you know what, we want to get people to come to our webinar that is only about this topic. the new release 21B. So that's Tuesday coming up, April 20th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4:20 for all the people out there who like to smoke weed. You can smoke weed and learn about Eloqua new release stuff. So that's awesome if you're into that kind of thing. So the next thing is just a quick reminder. I'll probably do this every month. Don't forget about the Eloqua free training that is available right in the Eloqua Help Center. In the navigation in Eloqua as well, in some sections, almost every section, there's inline learning, they call it, where you can click and watch videos, or it takes you to the Help Center. That's free training. It's better than it was when I was in my first few years as an Eloqua user. It was super expensive. You had to go in person, join a class. Anyway, obviously a lot has changed in 16 years, but the Help Center does have a good amount of free training. And then of course, Oracle University, where it's classes of training online that you can take. You have to have a paid subscription if you want to take it with a live instructor, but there's a lot of material there that is free, meaning you can just watch it on demand. There's some that are like 2 minutes, some that are 20 minutes. So it really depends on what you're after. The stuff that's longer, takes more time, is typically the paid stuff. And then last reminder here is our next Eloqua user group meeting will be May 20th. So we'll get together in about a month. So with that, just quick reminder, you're going to get these this recording. You can enter your questions in the Q&A. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Sechrist to talk to us about Infinity IQ. So Jeff, let me stop sharing and talking.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me get this. There we go. Hello, everybody. Good to be here today. My name is Jeff Sechrist. I run product management for Infinity, one of the products within the Oracle CX marketing stack. And I'm here today to talk to you about our new product, Infinity IQ, and give you some insights into what that is. As Karen said, it's not quite Infinity, it's not quite Maximizer, but it's an evolution actually of both of those things coming together under a single product. And you know, our teams are actually coming together from a development perspective as well, and bringing a more unified solution to market. And the first version of that is just being released right now, and I'd like to share with you a little bit about what that looks like. So sharing a little bit of futures, so Oracle requirement, and let's move on. Okay, so I don't have to tell you all that your businesses are changing, that COVID's had an impact on the way that people are viewing the role of digital in the world, and that, you know, it's becoming more critical for businesses to focus on their digital presence. There's digital events. Things changed really quickly here over the past year, and businesses are really thinking the way that they're interacting with their customers on the digital channels. And, you know, one of the things that when I first started in this business and we were first starting to work with Eloqua customers, I heard a lot from the Eloqua customers that one of the primary things that that Infinity was bringing to the table was real-time decisioning and real-time data activation and personalization. And I always heard, you know, that's less important on the B2B side. People don't care about real time, and you know, those are consumer tactics. And I think I've seen those sorts of distinctions start to slip away. And you know, this Harvard Business Review study talks about the role of real time just within how much you follow up with leads, or how quickly you follow up with leads, and how much more likely they are to become a qualified lead with real-time activation, with real-time follow-up, and you know, being able to communicate with customers in a real-time manner. So you know, what Infinity has been about and remains about, even in this new world, is about helping to capitalize on behaviors, and leverage those activities to be able to engage customers in real time, and be able to help impact customer purchase behaviors, customer, you know, content download behaviors, consistency of customer experience, etc. And so Oracle Infinity is really in this behavioral intelligence space, and Infinity IQ is a SKU. So Infinity IQ is kind of the fully loaded product that we're selling, and it combines elements of Infinity that you may already be familiar with, some of which have been redesigned with the marketer in mind, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. It combines Maximizer into this solution as well. So if you're familiar with everything Maximizer does, Maximizer is now part of this solution. Part of the Infinity IQ SKU includes Maximizer. It also includes the new product that you may have heard about, which is marketing recommendations. And so you can buy that as a standalone SKU. You can still buy Maximizer as a standalone SKU. You can still buy Infinity Streams as a standalone SKU. But Infinity IQ brings those things together under one solution, with an eye toward how we continue to develop this as a unified solution, and continue to add more capabilities, largely driven by AI and ML algorithms against the common data set that we're building here. So let me go into a little bit about what this looks like. So kind of the three main areas of the platform are the data collection, data streaming aspect of the pipeline, the intelligence and the decisions that we apply to that pipeline in real time, and the activation, which is how we activate that data back to a system like Eloqua for customers to leverage within their multi-channel campaigns that they're orchestrating through Eloqua. So the first piece that I want to talk about is one that is that we're quite excited about, but it also at the same time is an evolution from where we have been. Remarketing and actions is the message we've been talking about with Infinity from the start, and it's a core part of Infinity IQ, but we have redesigned this from the ground up to be more focused on the marketer as the audience for building these triggering rules and these campaigns. And so if you have some experience with Infinity in the streams realm, and you've seen the sort of more technical interface there, it takes a lot of the same capabilities, the same ideas and components, and has rebuilt them in a more user-friendly manner. For example, you can see here that we've got, we're loading up oops, I'm sorry, my over-aggressive mouse there. We're loading up rules on when we're triggering, applying filters on the fly to that, and doing this with more plain language kind of processing around what you're trying to isolate on, under what circumstances, and where are you trying to activate that data. So a much more marketer-friendly interface for creating these triggering rules and creating these actions. So what do these look like? Today in Eloqua, if you're just using Eloqua, you can obviously do targeting in Eloqua based on a variety of factors, but when it comes to the behavioral attributes that you generally are collecting with Eloqua, you'll have an email that gets sent, and you'll have data about hitting a landing page, whatever. But the Eloqua tag itself generally is only triggering based on a completion of some type of activity. So you have this binary sort of, they hit a page or they didn't, or they completed the form or they didn't. And it becomes this sort of singular approach to like yes, no, to defining the rules for what you're triggering on. And what you might lose as part of this is that you've got unknown actions happening here that might be of interest and might help you understand how customers are engaging with your content and give you clues as to how engaged they are, that you're completely losing because of the way the Eloqua data tracking happens today. So with Infinity, we have a much more broad-based data collection strategy. We've got we're executing a common tagging strategy within the CX marketing space, which is being extended to Eloqua, that allows you to capture a broader set of information about what customers are doing online and be able to capture all of these activities and use them in combination to determine what your retargeting rules are and how you're trying to engage with customers. So instead of just yes, no on did they hit a page or did they complete an action, you've got a more robust set of activities that you can leverage. And, these can go into, different types of activities around registrations, forms, videos, content engagement, that can all be used together to, to drive customers through campaigns. From the Eloqua side, what this looks like in its sort of initial approach here within Eloqua leverages the feeder app concept within Eloqua. So you can use this Infinity feeder to design into your campaigns the ability to use behavioral data to both trigger customers into these campaigns, as well as inform how they flow through the branches of the campaigns, and leverage that data from Infinity to be able to get more granular around how you're targeting customers. So while that has existed in the Infinity plus Eloqua world in the past, we are making significant improvements in how it works and how it feels and how accessible it is to the average marketer in Infinity IQ, and it's one of the areas that we're excited about. We're going to continue to expand what you'll see in the first releases here with more pre-configured common use cases that just take a lot of the complexities of the configuration and the activation out of the hands of the customers and just automate some of that where we can. And that's where, from a roadmap perspective, this will continue to improve from this initial deposit, which was a big one here in terms of just driving overall simplicity. The second area is in the realm of digital analytics, and if you have Infinity experience, you know that there's an Infinity Analytics application. It includes dashboards and funnels and other ways to evaluate data and the effectiveness of your campaigns. That is a core component of Infinity IQ, and can be leveraged in full as a digital analytics solution, or complementing if there's another analytics solution in place. But you can leverage this specific to some of the campaigns that you're running. For example, this here is a dashboard that was built looking at engagement of accounts based on the campaigns that they're coming from and the types of devices that they're on. You can completely configure these dashboards to show the information that you want to show. We also have these funnels, and this example here of a funnel follows customers from follows them when they're on the site, with the types of things that happen between hitting a landing page and hitting and completing a purchase or an order or a registration, and how people might fall out across those processes. So you can build these custom as well. In fact, like the Eloqua product team I know has built these funnels as well, looking at data from essentially from email send to open, to click, to convert, to on-site activities and conversions, and tried to connect the dots across the Eloqua realm of behaviors within the campaign and the infinity realm of behaviors on the site and tie those together into a more unified funnel. So some good things happening there as well. So those are components that have been part of the Infinity stack in the past, which remain key pieces of Infinity IQ. But I also mentioned Maximizer, and so there are elements of Maximizer that come into play here and become part of the Infinity IQ product. So testing and personalization and everything that Maximizer can do is now part of Infinity IQ. So the visual editor, loading your variants in, creating your tests, creating your targeting rules, the capability that we talk about between Infinity and Eloqua is often in the area of driving real-time personalization. The retargeting and the elements that I was talking about in terms of driving data into Eloqua campaigns can also drive data into the Maximizer platform. Custom data elements within the Maximizer platform that can be updated in real time based on behaviors and drive and determine the personalization that customers see when they hit the website or when they go deeper in the website from Eloqua into the website to connect those dots and ensure a consistent experience across those channels as well. Maximizer also had built a visual analytics mechanism, heat map type functionality that can show, how customers are engaging across different types of activities, as scroll depth and time spent on page, and adjust the date range and do some comparative things here to get a visual view of how customers are interacting with pages and with variants. Also part of now Infinity IQ as a result of bringing these pieces together. Real-time recommendations. I mentioned the standalone marketing recommendations SKU that is now included in part of Infinity IQ. So this is part of our pitch as well. The initial capabilities here are web personalization, which is what we're showing here, essentially bringing product recommendations into your website, variants by designing through the visual editor capabilities that have been part of Maximizer. So you can build variants that fold recommendations into your website based on different criteria and how customers are interacting. This is not just product recommendations, but also content recommendations. So especially in a B2B realm where you're trying to provide helpful content to customers who are trying to educate themselves on different capabilities, rolling content in based on their behaviors, their interests, their behaviors on your website. That's what's involved there. But we're extending this as well. Some of the initial extensions actually are more on the responses platform. So we have a widget for responses that can leverage the same recommendations and feed recommendations into emails. And we expect to extend that model over to Eloqua as well. But we also will have some APIs, so these recommendations can be embedded essentially anywhere that you are working, that with other MarTech technologies as well. So we will be extending this functionality. Just a couple of final things here. Opportunities. This is in the roadmap for Infinity IQ and will start to surface as early as next quarter. But the opportunities essentially weeds through the data that's being collected to surface areas where there may be opportunities for improvement in your business. And so these sort of recommended opportunities you'll be able to click into and help shortcut some of the configuration steps that are required to set up and execute against some of these campaigns. And we're going to be using ML models to evaluate the data, to surface segments that may be underperforming, and surface opportunities to remarket to those segments, for example. So we're excited about this, and this is something that will be starting to show up soon. Similarly, predictions are this is something that we've been working with several clients on today, and we're building it into the UI here for the creation of these data activations, which would allow you to essentially now include as a triggering rule, a filter. Essentially, we only trigger when the likelihood of abandonment exceeds a certain percent. And that's just one example. But if you're wanting, today with Infinity, we're quite good at triggering on live behaviors, and a lot of the remarketing happens once people abandon the site. They abandon, and we push data to Eloqua saying, here's how you can go about trying to remarket to this account. This allows you to get in front of that and to say, hey, I'm engaged with my accounts right now, and they're demonstrating behaviors that suggest they're likely to leave without completing my form or doing what I want. How do I get in front of that and trigger something different as a result of knowing this? Often this is a combination of Infinity and Maximizer type functionality as well, where you're triggering based on the probability and the experience is being changed using Maximizer functionality, such as light boxes or just a different variants based on how customers are engaging. We do have actually a customer using this to try to control costs in their service center. They're using this approach here to try to predict the likelihood of customers engaging with them in their click to chat or contact customer support channels, which are their more expensive channels, and they're trying to keep them in the digital channel. So if they predict that the customer is highly likely to engage with the support team because they're not getting their questions answered, they're actually rotating content in to a place on the site to try to proactively answer customers' questions and keep them in the more cost-effective digital channel based on that predictive logic. So this is an exciting enhancement that's going to be coming soon into the Infinity IQ realm as well. So while Infinity can be used with lots of products, with both within the Oracle CX stack as well as in non-Oracle products, this is an Eloqua user group, right? And so Infinity plus Eloqua together really does help to track customers at a broader, with a broader degree of insight into their digital behaviors and how you can take advantage of that, how we target and engage those buyers and prospects and customers and accounts based on a richer set of data, how we activate into those channels, as well as all the other elements of Infinity IQ that I think can start to have benefits for the Eloqua customers as well. I know traditionally, for example, Maximizer and A/B testing and personalization has not been as prevalent in the Eloqua and B2B communities, and we're starting to see that change. And I think those trends I talked about right at the beginning are driving a lot of that change. You're all at the forefront of making some of that happen. I hope you saw something in here that sparks your interest in evaluating Infinity further, and would love to help get you farther along on your own marketing maturity by leveraging some of these new solutions. That's all I had for prepared remarks today. I'm happy to stick around and answer a few questions. I know there's other content as well. So thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to Karen.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate you going through all of that. And I hope you guys learned a lot about Infinity IQ and the obviously various benefits it brings. I did put in the chat, like one way I like to think about it is Eloqua can do so much and marketing automation tools like it, but they can't deliver what many of us experience, like that Amazon online experience where Amazon knows what I want next before I've even thought of it, with the recommendations engine, and just very quick. Everything is super quick with their sites, their personalization on their web experience, their emails, their multiple channels, mainly those two, mobile similarly with their apps. So it's like everything is connected. And of course, they're Amazon and have a gazillion dollars, but this is one of those tools that Oracle offers that can help you get there. So it's not overnight, but it is definitely one of the things that you would need to get there. So anyway, just wanted to toss that
I
out
did
there.
see one question in the chat. It was a question about one of my TLAs. I used the 3-letter acronym CTA. That's calls to action. So I mentioned tracking broader than just like the sort of binary. Did they register or not? Is the call to action is to register. So it's moving beyond that and getting to the richer data set.
Cool, thank you, Jeff and Kevin, for the question. Any other questions that come in, please put them in the Q&A. And Jeff, if you could stay till the end, that way if anything comes through in the Q&A, or if anybody asks a question when we open it up for Q&A at the end, that'd be great. And guys, feel free to ping those questions over. And of course, if you want pricing on Infinity IQ or Infinity or Maximizer or anything, obviously Oracle related, you'll want to talk to your Oracle account manager. And if you don't know who that is, let me know and I can connect with the partner team at Oracle to find out. So our next topic is a quick tip from Kristen Connell. She is Kansas-based, hence the Wizard of Oz little gift there. But she's our Senior Director of Growth Marketing and has been with Sojourn for many years. Kristen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Karen. It's always a surprise what you put together for me for introduction. So I love this. Yeah, so I'm glad to be here. I've not spoken in an Eloqua user group, it seems like for years, but I was really excited to do this. And just real quick about me, I first started in Eloqua back in, I'm just gonna put it out there. So it was like 2007. Everyone can do the math. Did my consulting around Eloqua for about 5 years, moved client side for about 5 years to a client up in the Northeast, an Eloqua client while we were there. Speaking of marquees, we were nominated for one and won one around metrics that matter. One of my most favorite topics, yes. Then I came back to consulting. So I have been at Sojourn. Actually, it was 5 years. I think I just was, that notice just went out yesterday. In my current role, I don't work a lot in Eloqua, but I recently had a project where I needed to set up some forms relatively quickly. And I wanted to do because I wanted to test some things. And so that's where this tip came from. So I went in and set up some, well, okay, the focus here, my title is a little less racy than Karen's, but how to use Eloqua's native form field validation is actually how I framed this up. But really what this is about is I went into Eloqua thinking, I just need to set up a couple forms. And so I did shortcut the setup. I set them up, I repurposed a couple existing forms, made a few quick changes for what I needed to test on the front end and did my testing, and then put it aside and moved on to something else. Well, within a matter of days, it may have been hours even, we started seeing, because I had form notification processing steps active, we started seeing a trickle of this very racy content come through our inboxes. And unfortunately, it not only copies to our GTM team, but it also copies to our leadership team. So we were all getting quite a bit of racy content coming through, some of it very much more explicit than others, but really quickly it started flooding. If any of you have seen this type of behavior, you know what I mean. So I immediately put a halt to everything else that I was doing and went back into the one of the forms that I still had active. I went back to the form submission data thinking, I need to get this fixed as quickly as possible. I hate to have to reach out to one of my developers to put, some code on this for the reason that I needed the form. So it became really clear, and here's like a snapshot. It became really clear that the spammers were very passionate about using URLs. So they wanted to send us to all their sites. They wanted to send us to all their pictures. They all had URLs in the comments they were leaving. And there was even some HTML. There were some creatives as they came through here. So definitely not a pretty picture. And the before, this is kind of what I looked at as the before. I just had some very basic validation, I realized, on the setup. So it was not set up to to battle against this type of behavior. So then I flipped over to the form. So I was hoping, again, like I said, I really wanted to be able to fix this myself and quickly, because I had so many other things that I needed to get to. So going back into the form, you can see there on the right, I have the form itself. I simply clicked into one of the fields, and the primary field that I was focused on first was our comments field. So when I clicked into the comments field, on the left side of the screen, this whole new section popped up. The title of that, their paragraph text, but there's a whole section there on field validation. And I realized I had pretty much missed it all. So not only could I limit the number of characters per field, which I was kind of hit and miss on, again, because I was so quickly focused on setting these up, I also realized that I could simply check a box to exclude any URL in any field. And I could also exclude any HTML. Well, the purpose of these forms, neither format was required at all. So I immediately checked the boxes, hit save, and that fixed it. I mean, I was just super impressed being able to go into a tool with something that I felt was potentially going to require a development resource, and be able to do that internally myself. And so, yeah, after that, proudly say that we are spam free. Now, shortly after that, I fixed up some of the other forms, and we've rolled out reCAPTCHA. So it's not necessarily a complete solution for spam, but it is one that if you don't currently have activated on your Eloqua forms and you're seeing any of that type of behavior at all, that can quickly help to eliminate it. And you can call that a win. Again, my takeaway here is being able to do that myself very quickly, and then getting on to other things I need to do. It's just something that I really appreciate in the platform. So I hope it's helpful for someone else. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing that. So the net of this, guys, is you don't have to do JavaScript to do this form validation. Back in the day, you used to, and with some other platforms that Eloqua competes with, you have to have a developer to come in and do JavaScript to do any of these, in some cases, all of these form field validation little features. So I'll show you guys really quickly in Eloqua so you can kind of get a step-by-step feel for it. So when you open a form, here's our Contact Us form. There's our inquiry, AKA comments field. On the right-hand side, you've got the typical stuff like the field label, inquiry. You can tell we're a global company. Inquiry is more, I think, UK speak. In the US, we say usually like comments on forms. And then you've got this field is required. Here's where we've got some of these options. Like Kristen said, we've gone a different route with CAPTCHA, but this is what you can do out of the box with Eloqua. Some people don't like to use CAPTCHA because it can prevent people from submitting a form as far as user experience, but these are some options that Eloqua will do. And then these are just, if you want to pre-populate the form, if it's on Eloqua landing page, you can choose to do that here. But anyway, here is where the magic lives. All 4 of these features for field validation, what they do is they really do create JavaScript. So if you put this form on an Eloqua landing page, it will work. It's a little bit different if it's on your website. It doesn't magically put that JavaScript field validation on your website. Depends on how you embed this Eloqua form. You can do that. Where is it?
Yeah, so Karen, so ours did because of the way that we've launched our forms.
Nice, that's awesome. So here's the full form HTML, which will have that JavaScript in it. Other people are like, you know what, we just want the basic details to post that form data from our website to Eloqua. Different option, less coding, much less for a web person, like your website admin, to push that data. It's really just called a post of form data to Eloqua versus this is the embed option with all that juicy validation stuff to keep the porn out of Eloqua. Unless you're a porn company, then you might want to keep it. So with that, I'm going to stop talking about porn and move on to our next topic, which is retargeting using Eloqua and the apps it has for retargeting on your social channels specifically. So let me just point out first, there is an app to do this, not for every social channel like I indicated at the beginning of this meeting, but I'm going to talk about the ones and how to find them in the App Cloud or Cloud Marketplace, as Oracle has renamed it. So just some quick things to think about. So there's kind of two different things you can do. One is to push people from Eloqua to your social channels. So with LinkedIn, Google Ads, there are apps that can do this. There's a free one. So Oracle has created some of these apps. Partners have created others. So be careful. Like that's why I put in parentheses, some are free and some are paid. So you could go down the path and tell, you know, your team, like, we're going to do Google Ads retargeting from Eloqua to Google. No problem. We're going to get people. It's going to be all amazing. And then you forget to say, but there's a cost to it. So just keep that in mind and I'll show you guys how to see that in the Cloud Marketplace. But this first situation is we want to get these people retargeted on our social channels. So for LinkedIn, easy peasy, free. It will add the Eloqua contacts to your LinkedIn matched audience. That's what it's called on LinkedIn. If you're doing it there, great. If you're not, consider it maybe if that's where your audience is. It's not a given that everybody should do this. And keep in mind it has a cost. LinkedIn, doing ads on LinkedIn or Google ads, of course, is a cost. Or Facebook ads. That's where these companies are making a gazillion dollars, or as Emily, one of our founders, would say, 11 billion, but actually I think more than that. The other situation is the opposite flow of data. So think of it as you have ads somebody submits on the Google ad or the Facebook ad or the LinkedIn ad. Now we want to get them into Eloqua and send them content out of Eloqua and maybe nurture them or hopefully convert them. So in this case, we've got a LinkedIn app. It's called the Lead Gen Forms app. It's free. It will take those LinkedIn ad submitters and put them into your Eloqua campaign. You can pull them in by putting the app on your campaign or multiple campaigns. So we'll look at that. And then the Facebook lead ads is a free one as well, I think created by Oracle, where it adds the Facebook ad submitters to your Eloqua campaign. So these people can't come into Eloqua from LinkedIn and Facebook. So let's go in and look at it. Oops, Betty White, wait a minute, we're not there yet. I love Betty White, but she's getting really old. If you haven't watched the documentary on Betty White, I highly recommend it, and Whitney Houston. That will bring you back to reality. Okay, so what I've created is a campaign. I'm going to walk you guys through this, but first I want to show you where do you even get the apps to be able to add them to a campaign. Good question, guys. So what we want to do is go to, here it is, the Cloud Marketplace. If you don't know how to get to this, let's assume you don't. Let me just close that. If you're in Eloqua and you go to your setup area and you go to apps, not everybody has access to see everything I'm showing here. This is admin view. So you may not have the rights. If you're not an Eloqua admin, you might have to ask your admin to install the app that you want. But to even get to the Cloud Marketplace to see the apps, like the iStore for Apple iPhones and stuff, you can click here. This is where you can get to it. I bookmarked it because I go to it a lot, but you'll see, so Oracle Cloud Marketplace, you can have an Oracle single sign-on. You'll need that in order to eventually install an app. So I'm going to just go ahead and do my Oracle single sign-on. Fear not, Oracle's not going to do anything to you that's annoying. You have to opt in. They actually do a pretty good job of abiding by the opt-in and opt-outs. So it's in two categories, applications and services. If you're looking for a partner like Sojourn, you can come to services and search through and find a partner. Not what we're doing. You'd want to be in the application section. That's what it defaults to, thankfully. So what you can do is you can search for social, or you can search for, maybe you're more focused on LinkedIn. If you haven't ever been here before, it's got some other tools and filtering, like you can hone in on just apps for Eloqua. I will caution you, sometimes there's an app for Eloqua, and when you check this, it doesn't show up. Whatever, it's maybe a database error on the Oracle side. And then you can see paid versus free. So if you're only having an appetite for free, you can choose that. So let's actually do that. And then hit go. So we'll see a bunch here. And actually this one's not free, so I don't know why it showed up, but so this is not perfect. Little tip for Oracle to fix it. So when it's free, it will say free, which is awesome. You can clearly see it when you're searching through these. And then there's some that are not quite related to what we're doing. So if you wanted to install the one that we're using today, which is LinkedIn Campaign Manager, or just learn more about it, like, is this the one KP was talking about? This app actually has a couple tools in it. It has 3 different tools in it. So this would be the one I want. You can look through it. There's documentation, cool. Who created it? Provider, Oracle. Who rated it? Nobody. Awesome. And then you can get the app. So you have to agree to that, gibberish. And then we've already installed it, so I'm curious to see what it's going to do. Accept and install. And it's going to show you, you're going to have the ability to do an action of pulling in people from LinkedIn and, oops, that's this feeder. And then the action of pushing people to the LinkedIn match audience. I reversed that. Trying to talk fast so we have time for questions and answers. You have to log into Eloqua again, accept it. And then wait for it. And now it will show up here. You can search for links in, and you'll see we've got a couple of different apps here for it. So now, if you ever want to click on it, you can here and go to the settings. And ultimately, this is where you would put your company's LinkedIn credentials. So this is mine just for testing. But ideally, if we were truly going to use this at Sojourn, which we're not yet, and if we wanted to retarget on LinkedIn, which we're not yet, but maybe one day, not, at least not automatically through Eloqua. So anyway, we would have to put it in our Sojourn account here, or at least one of our admins of it, those credentials, so that it will tie to that account, not my personal account. So fast forward, easy bake oven, like those TV shows where they put the pie in the oven and then they show you, oh, here it is. So what I've done here is I added a feeder for anybody that fills out our LinkedIn, our Facebook or LinkedIn ads, forms behind those ads. Then we get them pushed into this campaign. And this is a pretend scenario that we're trying to get people to come to this Eloqua user group in April. So first thing is campaign sending them out an invite, see if they click through it. If not, a week later, how do I know it's a week later? Going to keep checking, evaluating for 1 week before it moves somebody either down the yes or no path. That's what that evaluation period means. That took me years, guys, to wrap my head around, especially in the old Eloqua interface. I could not understand that for the life of me. Anyway, so send the second invite, see if they click through it. They still didn't. So now we're going to retarget them on LinkedIn. I'll open this up as far as I can. I'll show you. In Eloqua technical terminology, it's considered a cloud action. And it's technically using the API connection between Eloqua and LinkedIn. So this is where you would choose your LinkedIn credentials, the correct ones, the correct account, and then the audience on the LinkedIn side that you want to add people to, so that you can pop up an ad to hopefully get people to register for the next Eloqua user group meeting. So it's pretty straightforward, not very difficult. There are some minimums. I don't have them in front of me, but there are some little nuances to using this app. And the big thing to keep in mind is it will cost money, right? Like if you add people to have an ad show up for them on LinkedIn, that costs money with your LinkedIn account. So it's not free on that side. So the next thing following this campaign, let me just stop. How did I even get this little purple LinkedIn circle here? So it shows up, I'll type in LinkedIn or just link. It shows up as an action. So all I did was drag it over and I renamed it to make it obvious what is happening here. But that's what it looks like. So let me get rid of it. Eloqua's going to get confused because I'm doing stuff before it's processing it. And then the top one was what I drug over here. So anyway, just to keep going. So we retarget on LinkedIn, which the whole point of that ad on LinkedIn was to get somebody to register for the Eloqua user group meeting. So we're checking here to see if they did. If they did, awesome, we're successful. No, now let's try to harass them and maybe text them. So I don't suggest doing this unless it really makes sense for your audience to hit them on all these channels, but I just want to show you there's also another channel you could send them a message on, SMS. So we could see if they're opted into SMS, not that they just have a phone number, a mobile phone number in our Eloqua. And then you can use an app. This is not a free app. It's a paid app to do SMS today, and then check to see if that worked, if the text message got them to click on the link in it and go register for the Eloqua user group meeting. Don't worry, we're not going to like activate this and do this with you guys. Fear not. We will only send you on the email channel at this point, and we just post on LinkedIn and Twitter just updates about the user group and hope people register. So one other thing, just side note, SMS. We get a lot of people asking about SMS and when is it going to be native to Eloqua? You have to use an app like SureShot's Twilio app, which is great, but it costs money. Well, on the Eloqua product roadmap for later this year, they're going to have under controlled availability. So not everybody will get access to it, but some handpicked customers who are going to probably send millions of text messages out of Eloqua, they'll be able, but they'll have to pay to do that because text messaging isn't free. You have to send a text out and then pay for it with the provider who is doing that. In this case, it'll be Oracle with their text messaging engine, and it'll be like cents on the dollar or cents on the euro. It'll be cheap at the individual text level, but when you send a million text messages out in a month, it starts to add up as a marketing channel. However, anyway, that'll be something down the road. Probably in 2022, it'll be generally available to everybody, but again, it'll be at a cost to use it with Eloqua. So I thought that was exciting to find out. I think that the product roadmap has already presented that, the Oracle team, but I was in a session last week where they mentioned it. So it wouldn't be something if you're like, well, we've never done SMS. Can we get in that controlled availability program? No, it wouldn't be a good fit. They really need people who have strategies and are already executing SMS for the most part. So, and again, it's going to cost money to test it out. So, all right, I think that's everything. Let me see what is happening in the chat. I don't have an example. So Joel asked, do you have an example of a LinkedIn lead gen form? We have done ads on LinkedIn. We don't have any at present that I'm aware of that I could pop up here, but just keep in mind that when you're on LinkedIn, that when you see ads, that's a LinkedIn lead gen ad. Let me see here. Where are their ads? Here's one. So when I click on this is actually LinkedIn targeting me to do ads on LinkedIn. That's awesome. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover with the apps. You'll see Pinterest, Instagram, they're not available here. Let me open back up the cloud marketplace. Where is it? Oops, we named it App Cloud. So just bear that in mind. That's the bummer, is that like, so there are a lot of other social platforms than LinkedIn and Google and Facebook, obviously. And you might be like, KP Twitter is where we see most of our audience, or Pinterest or Instagram. Unfortunately, there are not apps for those yet. If there are, they're going to be paid, or it's going to be a custom solution. So not to say that it's super costly, because it doesn't have to be. So I want to open it up. Does anybody have a question or a tip? There's no such thing as a dumb question. I was curious if anybody is doing SMS through Eloqua, or if anybody has a tip to share. Like Kristen shared that tip on the form field validation, and that could save a lot of people time and money. Like you wouldn't have to pay a web developer to write JavaScript, perhaps. But let me just stop talking and see, does anybody have any questions or tips? So there is a question in the chat. Can you comment on the Bronto migration to new Eloqua? So if anybody doesn't know, Bronto is a tool that Oracle owns that works with, I believe, their NetSuite CRM. And it's basically like a mini Eloqua, like it can send emails out, but it's not really full marketing automation. All I can share on that is there are various partners like Sojourn that can help you migrate to Eloqua from Bronto. Bronto is being end of life, so it's not going to be a tool that Bronto users can use for very much longer. I think it's this year, not sure. Anybody from Oracle can feel free to put that in the chat when Bronto does get shut down completely. But basically, a lot of people who are on Bronto, because they're an Oracle customer using Bronto, they're considering Eloqua as the next best move for them. So any other questions, comments? looks like, so Anne Marie, thanks for chiming in. So as far as my little bubble there on SMS, she mentioned that the Spurs, the San Antonio Spurs, are sending SMS from Eloqua, but the way they're doing it is a paid app plugin. So I wonder, Anne Marie, if you'll be approached potentially by Oracle to be a part of their controlled availability program, but that's later this year. So, okay, Bronto end of life is May 31st, 2022. Actually, it's not this year. So there you go. And thanks, Anne Marie makes a good point. So this has helped them to do SMS. It's obviously with reaching out to fans, helpful for them in various ways to get people to come to the games and to the events before the games, etc. It's just another way to reach your customer. But again, I can't hit on enough. It doesn't make sense for everybody. When I was a marketing practitioner, it didn't make sense for us to message people on SMS. We tried voice back in the day when Eloqua had that as a feature. This is like more than 10 years ago. And we used it as a way to remind people to come to our in-person CTO series, where our CTO traveled North America and parts of Europe. Once a month, he would go somewhere and present cool stuff that SourceFire was doing. So we tried that, and it was okay. We didn't see stellar results, but anyway, it was kind of neat because it was a voice you could pick, like male, 40 years old, Italian accent, and what language do you want them to speak in? So I played jokes on my coworkers and had like some weird voice call them and say something funny. That does not exist in Eloqua, to clarify. That was an old feature. You can do, it's called VMS, voice messages, through apps like the SureShot Twilio app. But anyway, so what Anne Marie is mentioning, so for them, it's considered a transactional text, the way they're using it, because it's in association with a ticket they purchased for a specific game. That makes sense. So there's, yeah, the legality of texting has always been a topic or question that we get asked. So SMS has a lot of compliance around it, a lot of rules, but because they just had a customer buy a ticket or hopefully a ton of tickets, they can communicate with them on SMS, likely to get them a link to their ticket. So when they get to the game, they can just pop up probably the code to show their ticket, not have to have a printout ticket, and save some trees. So anyway, that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing, Emery. Appreciate it. Anybody else have questions? So Joel is sharing, we were still experiencing spam bots, which did not include HTML or URLs in the submission. So we added a field called spam email, which we had to hide with some simple JavaScript code. And if the field was filled, we did not collect or pass on that data to Eloqua. Pretty cool. So there's different ways. And actually, if you're going to go to the Eloqua 21B release webinar next week, Oracle is coming out with more features out of the box for Eloqua to prevent form spam bots. They've gotten worse. It's not Eloqua's gotten worse. There are a lot more crappy people out there doing these engines, automated solutions that send spam bots out. So like our porn one, somebody programmed that to submit to a ton of different websites, not just Sojourn. So those stinky people probably giggle a lot and get people to click on the links in their submission, and then you get some virus probably on your device, which is no bueno. So don't click on those. I've been guilty of doing that once maybe or twice before, just because I'm curious. Anyway, so that will come out though. There is going to be another option. Actually, I think it was presented in this user group meeting a while ago. So keep an eye out for that. We're at our time. I want to thank everybody for participating. Joel, Anne-Marie, Kristen, Jeff, etc. Maria. Thank you guys for questions and comments, and for the presenters. Really appreciate you guys taking the time, and everybody just for joining today. I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday and a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, everybody. Goodbye.